Operation Domination is underway. The ultimate game plan to dominate your NFL experience. With your hosts, Dan
you gotta be confident about your Achilles.
Chase Thornton,
Yeah, I mean, I got it.
and Adam LaRue. Don't hope to be great and dominate.
All right. Welcome back in for another edition of Operation Domination. Don't hope to win, be great and dominate. You can catch Operation Domination on your favorite podcast app and check out our video content when you go to the Fantasy Football Advice Network YouTube channel at FF Advice Net. As always, I'm your host, Dan Mader. We got the Week 10 best bets for you. And to help us out, as always, we have Chaz Filardi of Sports Betting Weekly. Chaz, how are we doing today?
Well, we're trying to eliminate last week from our memory banks without releasing the knowledge that we picked up. But it was tough. I mean, I 6-6-1 was what I did, which, I might as well just, quit. But I did finish strong. I hit, I think, the last 4 games. So at that point, then 6-6-1. When you're 2-6-1, wow. But again, if you thought that Carolina was going to beat Green Bay and you bet them on the money line, you're a better handicapper than I am. It's just simply that simple. Simply that simple.
It's a game of variance. There's always, this is why, look, if we knew every time exactly what was going to happen, we wouldn't be doing this. We'd be on a yacht somewhere because we'd have all the answers. It's a game of variance. That's what makes it kind of fun, is the winning and the losing. Now, I mean, for you, Chaz, it's still ultimately you broke even. I did have a good week in player props, though. I went 10-5 in my player props last week. So that, thankfully, was a good week. And I needed that bounce back week because the week before I was not as lucky. Kind of like you last week. And we'll just move forward. The process stays the same. And our process has been rock solid over time. And I think that's been proven to this point.
Oh, no doubt about it. And again, it really is. I was talking to Adam. You were sunning yourself, I think, in some foreign country.
I lost the tan somehow.
Yeah, it happens. And I said to him how when you have a good week, it makes Monday and Tuesday totally great. I mean, I had the Detroit. I had a buddy in from college, and we were at a happy hour downtown in the gas lamp on a Monday. So it's really, really quiet. We're getting great service. Drinks are half price. Life is good. And I got Detroit, and they just are doing what Detroit's supposed to do. And when teams do what they're supposed to do, that's what happens. But they didn't do it last week. Like I said, the Packers sat on the throne of shame. So that variance that you mentioned is going to happen. What you got to try to remember is, yes, if you have a history of something being successful, don't change it because you tripped up once. But if you trip up 2 or 3 times, you need to reassess. And injuries, right? This time of year, injuries. My wife's a Baltimore fan. She's like loving life because somebody put on X, and she doesn't even have a Twitter account, but she saw it on the news that somebody put on X that Baltimore's healthy for the first time this year. And I kind of mentioned to her, well, they're going to need to be, because the only way they're going to make it is people in front of them collapse. But in that one division, of course, they're good at collapsing.
Yeah, and what I would add context to that is they're healthy for the active roster. There's guys in IR who are just not coming back this season. But it all depends on how you look at it. Ravens certainly one of the teams looking to make a run. All right, so let's talk game time, Chaz. We have another international game. Now, you have it worse than I do. You're on the West Coast. Even on the East Coast, even though this game starts at 9:30, I can't stand starting my routine early. 9:30 is usually when I wake up on the Sunday with the coffee in the hand, and then I start getting my projections, finalized and together, leading all the way up into kickoff at 1 o'clock. I cannot stand when I have to get up at 8. I know we're talking about an hour and a half difference, but it does drive me over the bend to throw off my routine because it's Sunday. I want to sleep in. You have it worse than I do. It's 6:30 in the morning over there on the West Coast.
Right, but I I recently spent 2 weeks in Europe trying to keep up with the NFL. So all of a sudden, you know what, I can handle that. But I've always had the same plan with these early games, which are the European usually games, is that I try to key them up to my Saturday night college games. And I tend to do good on the Saturday night college games because they're all West Coast teams. And there's teams that, you know, nobody really, San Diego State, they're doing real well. San Jose State, Nevada, that conference. There's some Pac-12 action that when it used to be Pac-12. Now there's some Big Ten games that are late because of UCLA and USC. But then I don't care. But I set my alarm for 8 o'clock, which is halftime. So I get the second half line, see where I stand. And I can't tell you how many times, Dan, the under was just the easiest winner in those games.
The international games in particular, like teams just don't play nearly as sharply, especially offensively, when it comes to those international games. We've seen it time and time again. But anyway, being at Operation Domination, other than this episode, is typically a fantasy football show. Make sure you guys set your lineups well beforehand, and make sure you set your alarm before kickoff, just in case there's any.
Oh, God, think about that, right? You got a guy, you're ready to pull the trigger, and for some reason, your alarm don't go off, and in the first half, he hits his numbers,
it happens every single year, especially setting fantasy football lineups. Like, it happens every single year with somebody. I remember Kamara years ago. That was a big one. This past year, Jalen Warren, he was expected to play that game. If you didn't wake up in time, Warren was locked in the lineups, and he didn't even play in that game over in Dublin. So make sure you're up in time just to make sure you're double checked and good to go. Speaking of the international game, let's talk about it. It is the Falcons and the Colts this week. The line is favoring Indy by -6.5 with an over-under of 47.5. Colts, of course, have been pretty good against the spread so far this season, covering more than 6 times this year. Chaz, how do you break down this game? What are you looking at here?
Yeah, you know what? Right now, I'm looking at why I don't have this game on my sheet.
The first game on Sunday in the international game, and you're like, no, we're tossing it.
Yeah, no, because I'm missing a sheet, and the sheet's important because it's got all the stuff on it. But can't be.
While you look for that, I do have a player prop for you guys in this game anyway. So I have Drake London on the Atlanta side, and good, he has a sheet. So we'll get back to him in a second. But Drake London, I have him on the Atlanta side on the Berlin game. His reception yards sitting at 69.5 on the line. I have him projected for just over 76 yards heading into this matchup. I know it's been a bit inconsistent, mostly because of Michael Penix, but at some point, the Atlanta Falcons are going to reach the point where Darnell Mooney is clearly a zombie of himself. He's not a factor out there. Kyle Pitts is only running 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. Bijan Robinson's heavily involved. There's only so much he can do. Penix is just going to sit there and eventually just light it up to Drake London because he's the only weapon they have that can get down the field. I know the Colts just traded for Sauce Gardner. It just happened. If you think Sauce Gardner is going to walk in and be a shutdown corner day one, that's not typically how this thing works. And the Colts have been a team that you could take advantage of. Plus, not to mention that even if Sauce Gardner was riding on all cylinders within this defense already, they moved Drake London around the formation. He gets the slots. He gets the mismatches. Look for London to go over 69.5 yards in a game in which the Falcons are expected to be trailing by nearly a touchdown, cause negative game script for more volume. So again, Drake London over 69.5 yards receiving in the international game. All right, so you have your sheet. So how are you breaking this game down?
Yeah, so it's funny because this is a game where the road, both is on the road, right? So I always go home, I do the overall, and then I do matchup. Matchup is home and away, but it's, of course, both away. And it's funny because in the first quarter, they're both incredible. Atlanta's on a 6-1 against the spread. Now, yes, okay, let me tell you. First quarter betting is a weird way to bet, but it's really easy to win if you get the right team. And we're going to talk about 2 or 3 of them games. But then you go on the other side, and Indy's 11-1 against the spread. So you know what? Why do teams win against the spread? That's what I look for. The why. We talk about the why all the time, and that's why I love the breaking it down to fantasy line and getting to the players props, because that's what gets you. If you score points, you're getting because somebody's getting in the end zone, and that getting in the end zone is either running, catching, or passing. Well, passing and catching, when you have the same guy, is the greatest thing ever. My son he's got a couple of his leagues where the same team's got the quarterback and the receiver, and that really is a great way to do it if you think about it. But in the second half on the road, Atlanta scored 11 or less in 9 of 10, and Indy is allowed 10 plus in 6 of 6. So again, this is why I really don't put a lot of focus on these international games. They're screwy. But I just did it. It takes you a while. If you're in a meeting the day after you flew into, where are they, in Spain? And they're in Germany? Where are they?
Berlin. They're in Berlin for this week. They'll be
the meeting room has people dozing off the day they get in, because I mean it's just a tough trip. So the prediction thing has Indy, but on my data I'm just going to watch.
Okay, that's fair enough. Again, with the international games, there's such a wide variance going on. There's not really a real pattern here, other than I think the under has been the play, and it's 47.5 right now. Okay, so let's go back to America, where we have the Giants and the Bears in Chicago. The Bears are favored at -4.5 with another 47.5 over under this week. Chicago, of course, coming off of that wild game that we saw between them and the Cincinnati Bengals a week ago, where they won at the last play of the game in a crazy game. I'm talking about betting the over. Oh man, was that fun to watch. What's going to happen in this matchup?
You asking me?
I am asking you.
All right. Well, here's what I'm thinking. That kid got hurt, and he was a big part of their team. Not just a running back. Yeah, not just a running back. He was an attitude. So the Giants on the road, or the Giants are on the road, and they're overall, they've scored 7 points or more in 6 straight. They're 6-0 against the spread in the first quarter. They scored 7 points in 6 straight. So that's the kind of first quarter stuff I'm talking about. Nobody talks about that, but Detroit, that was the only winner I had. Detroit came down the field, they scored, and then McCarthy looked like, Montana. But in the second half, the Giants are allowing 17 plus in 3 of 3 and allowing 33 plus in 3 of 3. At home, Chicago scoring 24 plus. They're 12-3 against the spread. I'm leaning Bears in the over.
So it's funny you say that, because that's exactly what I'm leaning to. So you have two defenses that are really weak. The Giants have been known to put up points in the first quarter and in the fourth quarter, from what I have seen for the most part. And then Chicago at -4.5. It's a lower line here. I do like the Bears at that line as well, because again, I think the Giants just don't ultimately have enough firepower to actually bring this within a touchdown here that we're talking about. So I'm totally with you on that one. I do have 3 player props for this game. So first off, I got Kyle Monangai. RU, baby, Rutgers, coming in, had the big week against Cincinnati a week ago. He has a 40.5 rushing yard total this week. I have him projected for at least 43 yards, but that might be too low. So when you're watching this show, and this comes out on Saturday mornings, when you're watching the show or listening to the show on your favorite podcast app or on at FF Advice Net on the YouTube channel, lock it in as soon as you see this, because this line might move. DeAndre Swift, who is expected to play this game, went from practicing Wednesday and Thursday and then not practicing on Friday, which was a bit of a surprise. So this line could very well change if it turns out that DeAndre Swift is not going to play. He's officially listed as questionable. So, 40.5 yards of Monangai as a starter, an absolute barn burner that you need to bet. So get it in while you can. Because even if Swift does play, he was already trending towards about 50% of the snaps to begin with before Swift even got knocked out of the game. And then Ben Johnson talked about on Thursday how he was going to ride the hot hand, meaning it is not a given that Swift, even coming back, is definitively the lead back. And this is a Giants team that, while nobody's worse than Cincinnati against the run, the Giants are a very close second right now. So go ahead and bet the over on Kyle Monangai over 40.5 rushing yards. Speaking of running backs, Devin Singletary, only 30.5 rushing yards. We all thought, myself included, that Tyrone Tracy was going to be the lead back. He had one hell of a second half of last year. He was the number 2 behind Cam Scatabo after Scatabo took his starting job after Tracy got injured. And then what do we see last week? Singletary out-touched and out-snapped Tyrone Tracy. And Chicago is very much a positive matchup for running backs. Not quite the matchup the Giants are, but they are a positive matchup for running backs in this one. And his rushing yards line is only sitting at 30.5. If they continue to lean into Devin Singletary being the lead back in a game at which I think they won't fall as far behind as quickly like they did in San Francisco a week ago, then I think it's very easy to see Singletary getting over that 30.5 mark this week. One more player prop bet for you. Darius Slayton, over 3.5 receptions. I have him projected for at least 4. He's come back since his injury the last 2 weeks and has seen 6 and 7 targets within those 2 weeks. Chicago, as we just, I mean, if you didn't already know it, you watched the game against Cincinnati, who put up 470 yards passing from Joe Flacco. The receivers can very easily eat. And being that Slayton has already been as involved as he has been, and Wan'Dale Robinson's usage has waned just a little bit, I do think this is a smash spot for Slayton to get over at 3.5 reception mark in this one. So again, to wrap up that game, I got Monungai over 40.5, Devin Singletary over 30.5, and Darius Slayton over 3.5 receptions. Let's talk a little Bills and Dolphins. AFC East rivalry game. I've talked about all the time how when we get these divisional matchups that, sometimes I tend to lean towards the underdog because these games never really go as expected. Although last time these two teams faced, which wasn't that long ago, the Bills blew their doors off and are built to do it again this time. They're favored at 9.5 points with a 49.5 over-under. Chaz, I'm betting the Bills all day, every day. They're just built to kill this type of team who just traded off one of their key defensive weapons in Jalen Phillips too. How do you see it?
Yeah, my notes say bet Buffalo, bet him again at halftime. Now, sometimes if it's a real big lead at halftime, I will throttle back on that size of that wager. But I know that, as you know, if you get your ass kicked in the first half, sometimes you don't really come out in the second half. You show up, you line up, but your heart's not in it. So, yeah, the two things that jump out at me, on the road, in the second half, Buffalo allows 9 or less in 4 straight. And in that same second half at home, Miami's allowed 13 plus in 9 of 10. And there's a lot. You're going to hear a lot of those 7 of 9s, 9 of 10s, 10 of 12s. Remember what week we're in. If you're on the road and it's 9 of 10, well, that's going back to 2024. We had the last week. Do you remember last week? It was Dallas. It was Dallas, right? It was December 23rd. 2 years ago was the last time a team didn't score 20 points when they played Dallas, and guess what happened? They went in there. That wasn't in a team. That was Arizona, right? And that wasn't in a team that was playing well.
Yeah.
And they put up 27, I think. So.
Yep. Every time it works like a friggin' charm. So I like that too. And guess what? I got a prop for you in this one. James Cook over his rushing yards is sitting at a healthy 86.5. I don't care. I have him projected for 95 yards against a top 3 worst defense in the league. He is. I mean, because we've been betting him. This is not the first time those words came out of your mouth. If you guys aren't watching, and that's the thing, there's nothing wrong with it, even if we don't say it, but it won for you in the past. Don't forget about that. But that dude can break it anytime he touches the ball. Every single time he touches the ball, he's one broken tackle away from a touchdown. And what's great about him right now is that sometimes he had to do it on like 12 carries. But now, last 3 games, it's been 17, 19, over 20. They're feeding the ball more as the season goes on, which just means more and more rushing yards. And that's why I love the over so much for him this week. Okay, so let's talk a little Ravens-Vikings, shall we? Your wife's favorite team there. Baltimore is favored on the road at -4.5 with an over-under of 48.5. What do you got in this game, Chaz? Any good news for your wife?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because we're when you're looking at data for Baltimore, it's corrupted data because you almost have to take out he's an MVP for heaven's sakes. If he's not in the game, you're not going to be the same team, but you really are. So I'm going to look for some big ones. Here's a big one. For the game, Minnesota's over in 6-6. On the second half, Minnesota scored 14 plus at home in 8 of their last 9. They're 7-2 against the spread in those second halves, and the over is 8 of 9. On the road in the second half, Baltimore scored 14 plus in 5 of 6. Yeah, I like this game to score a lot of points. On the road, Baltimore scored 28 plus in 5 of 6. The only team they didn't do it against was in Kansas City. And you know what? If you know anything about football, you're going to give your team a pass if they don't do good in Kansas City, because Kansas City is a tough place to play football. So, yeah, I like the over and I like Baltimore.
Okay, I'm down with that too because I like Baltimore covering that 4.5. I'm not impressed with J.J. McCarthy, and that game against Detroit was more of a fluke divisional rivalry thing than it was anything else in my opinion.
You got to admit, as a 49er fan, he looked like a young Joe Montana for a bit there. It was amazing. He was just throwing the ball everywhere he wanted to, and the whole time, my wife was screaming at the TV because she likes Detroit. She was screaming at the TV.
He has spurts. He'll have a drive here or there.
I totally put all my chips in against them. And at halftime, I did it again. The son of a gun, God bless him. The only thing I got going for me is I made a lot of money selling Michigan footballs, so I'm going to let him have a pass on last week.
That's fine. That's fine, too. I do have a player prop for you guys in this game. So I got Mark Andrews. I have him under his reception yards at 30.5. I have him projected for about 28.5 going into this ball game. Look, we all know it's been brutal, Mark Andrews. He has essentially turned into a red zone or nothing type of ball player. He is not getting targeted much at all between the 20s. Him and Isaiah Likely are just eating into each other's workload, and that's the biggest problem here of all. So keep that in mind with Mark Andrews. He might score, but like last week and the weeks before, he said 22 or less yards. Go with the under on Mark Andrews at 30.5 against the Minnesota Vikings.
Did he get the first touchdown of the game?
He did.
Yeah.
He got
right. Yeah. But if you're betting the first touchdown of the game, the second one don't really matter much.
No,
so,
absolutely.
That's a nice little hedge if you know.
But yeah, he's not getting the yards. So he's getting the yards. Yep, 100%. I'm with you on that one. He will continue to be a red zone target. I think this is more of a Zay Flowers type of game if you're looking in that direction. Browns and Jets. Not going to be a fun game to watch. Browns are actually favored at 2.5 points with an over-under of 37.5. And I'm still taking the under, Chaz, because these are two offenses just cannot move the ball.
Here's my note to myself. How bad is your team? And I have a buddy, the same guy that I watched the Detroit game. He's a longtime Jets fan. How bad is your team if the team you're playing is 0-9 against the spread on the road and they're giving you 4 points? Think about that. So here's what we got for the Jets. The only trend that jumps out at the Jets is in the first half, they're 0-6-1 against the spread on their last 7. And on the home in the first half, they've scored 6 or less in 4 of 4. Cleveland has allowed 9 or less in 4 of 4, but Cleveland lived there 3-11 against the spread. 3-11. On the road, they're 1-11 against the spread. They've scored 17 or less in 7 of 7. And almost all those things you got to throw out the window. Now, I won't have any of my money on this game, but it's comical how bad the Jets are.
It's comical how bad the Jets are, and it's comical how bad the Browns cannot really move the football at all. So, yeah, I am going to bet the under on this game, but I do have a player prop for you in this one as well. Quinshon Judkins, who's been very good throughout his rookie season, is sitting at an 82.5 over under for his rushing yards. The Jets were already giving up 5 yards per carry, and then they traded Quinnen Williams. Like, Quinshon Judkins is going to run and get his yardage in this game, in a game in which the Browns are not only favored, but regardless, even if they're down in this one, it should be low scoring enough where they never fall out of a neutral game script. You're going to see a lot of Judkins in this matchup. I have him projected for about 89 rushing yards heading into this ball game. So I got Judkins.
This totally could be a 9-6 final. Totally. There's no doubt in my mind.
Which favors the running back getting carries. That's what I'm all about.
Think about that. Think if it's 9-6 and the Jets cover. That would be bizarre.
That would be unreal, is what that would be. The Patriots and Buccaneers are facing off in this one. Tampa Bay at home, favorite at 2.5 and a 48.5 over under. Give me the Patriots to win this game outright on the road with the guy who could be the MVP this season in Drake May, with what he's doing with a lack of a supporting cast around him and a banged up Tampa Bay team, even coming out of the bye. What do you think about that, Chaz?
Yeah, no, in the first half, New England's 8-2 against the spread. They've allowed 9 or less after the break at halftime, and 6 of 7. They've scored 23 points or more in 6 straight games. At home, Tampa Bay has gone over 10 of 12 in the first half, and they've scored 25 plus in 9 of 10. They've been over 5 straight. On the road, New England 5-0 against the spread, last 5. So, I like New England in the over here.
All right. I love it. I love when we're on the same page with that kind of stuff. I don't have any props in this game, so we can fast forward to the Saints and the Panthers. Another doozy of a matchup that I don't know how much I'm going to want to watch outside of winning bets and fantasy football players. But Panthers at home, favored at 5.5. The over-under set at 38.5. The Panthers have actually covered quite a bit this season. And even though it's 5.5 and this is a Panthers team that I don't really trust to win games by a touchdown, the Saints are just that bad. So I probably would take Carolina to cover here at home. How do you see this thing?
The Saints data, all it shows is that they can't score and they can't stop anybody. This Carolina team, I mean, it was ugly, but they went into Lambeau Field and got a W. I don't care how ugly it is. That is a confidence builder.
It's a confidence builder. Now, the one thing I will say, and this is coming from somebody who played football before, when you have a win like that, an upset win like that, sometimes it can be an emotional drain on you the following week. And then you're playing a divisional matchup. Again, I go back to the Saints are frankly just that bad. Here's what I feel more comfortable betting in this matchup. It's a player prop. Rico Dowdle, who looks like the second coming of Adrian Peterson out of freaking nowhere all of a sudden. He's got a 93.5 rushing yard line, and that is not high enough. I have him projected for 101 rushing yards. The guy's been unreal. He went into Green Bay, who at the time was the number 1 defense in rushing yards per play allowed at only 3.3 yards, and dropped 130 burger on him, and apparently did it on one leg. And now he's healthy enough to play against the Saints defense, who's in the top 5 as far as the worst run defenses in the NFL. So give me Rico Dowdle over 93.5 rushing yards this game. I don't care that it's a big line. I still like it. With that, Jaguars and Texans, another divisional matchup. And this one tends to be a little bit more interesting, but I'll preface this game by saying this. CJ Stroud is ruled out with a concussion, and it is Davis Mills. Despite that, Jacksonville, and I know this game's in Houston, but despite that, Jacksonville, who's been a pretty decent ball team so far this season, is only favored at 1.5 points this week with an over-under of 37.5. I am going to take Jacksonville, basically the win at 1.5. So yes, to cover, but basically just to win this ball game. This is almost as near to a pick 'em as you can get without it being one. So that's how I see it. What do you think, Chaz?
Well, this under is the same under as the Cleveland Jets game.
Yeah, it is.
So that kind of tells you about what they expect from this. Yeah, I don't know who's going to win this game, but I do know that Houston just doesn't give up points. So I don't really think it matters who wins this game in terms of whether they're going to score points. I don't see Jacksonville, putting 27 up on them. No. So I like the under here.
All right, I'm with you. I like the under too. Jacksonville's defense has been decent as well, and Houston's offense has been kind of inept. But speaking of Houston's offense, there's one player who I do think has a chance to hit over on his player prop, and that is Nico Collins and his reception yards of 60.5. I have him projected for 66 heading into this ball game. You can attack the Jaguars on the perimeter. Like, they've been a pretty tough defense up the middle and over the middle. But on the perimeter, on the edges, against the corners and the outside guys, you can attack them. And while Davis Mills is certainly a downgrade from CJ Stroud, the one thing that he does give a boost to is the number one read in the offense. And we can go back to when Davis Mills was the regular starter for the Houston Texans pre-CJ Stroud. He locks into his number one guy, and he gives him jump balls. I expect him to do that this week with Nico Collins quite often, and often enough for him to hit over this yardage prop.
You know what I like, Dan? I like when your props are a number where if he gets 66 yards, he's not calling home to his wife and say, "Did you see my game?" He's not calling his mother, "Did you see my game, Mom?" And you're cashing.
Yeah, exactly. I love those. Those are my favorite lines too, because those usually have the best edges that you can attack. Cardinals Seahawks, talk about a game to attack. All right, so we have divisional matchups like throughout the NFL this week. So Cardinals Seahawks, it's in Seattle. Seattle's been rolling as of late, and they're 6.5 point favorites in this game with a 44.5 over under. What do you got in this matchup?
Well, I don't know where. I don't know. Arizona, Seattle. Yay! All right. So this is on the second page of my point spreads, right? Yep. All right. So here's what I got. In the first quarter on the road, Arizona 7-1 against the spread. At home, Seattle scoring 27 plus in 3 straight. I don't have a play on this game, but I like when I see 7-1 against the spread in the first quarter. It does say that Seattle is allowed 19 or less in 3 of 3. They're 6-1 against the spread, whereas for the game, Arizona's 8-2 against the spread. And that's the kind of stuff that'll shy me away from the game. There's a couple things, Dan. When both teams stink and when both teams are good, I like to play live action, because you can really kind of get a feel for it. And I might dabble a little bit, and they make fun of me with my small bets. But, when you hit a 7-team round robin with small bets, it's not small bets anymore.
Well, yep, 100%. That's how you cash and make money. ROI, baby. That's what we care about the most. Yeah, this is a game that does strike me as a live betting type of game. Again, you're talking about the divisional game, but also the narrative behind this game. Kyler Murray on IR, cough, cough, soft benching. And Jacoby Brissett coming in, which has lit a spark for the Cardinals offense. And while Seattle's defense has been very, very good, you have been able to throw on them at times this season, especially with a tight end and especially with a wide receiver. The two things that the Cardinals do have and are playing well. Now Jacoby Brissett is the starting quarterback and Kyler Murray is not. I have a feeling the Cardinals cover this game. Again, I'm more with you. I'd rather live bet this matchup, but I do think this will be an intriguing game to watch. Speaking of intriguing games, my bandaged up, zombie-looking San Francisco 49ers, gutting it out and trying to find ways to win games, are going to take on the Rams, who they've already beaten this season in Los Angeles. Now they go to San Francisco. This does feel a little bit different. The Rams have been really rolling as of late, and the 49ers, they won against a porous Giants team, and they just keep getting more injured every single week. It's really unreal. The Rams in this game are favored at 3.5, with an over-under of 49.5. So here's a little interesting stat for you. Since 2023, the 49ers are 8-14 against the spread at home after a win. So I don't know. What do you make of that, Chaz?
I watched the Rams. Now, I've been betting them in the second half. They've been covering for me. But the last 4 or 5 weeks, I don't think once in my life. I have a couple buddies that are always sending me the power rankings, the NFL power rankings, what teams, who's moving up, who's moving down. I don't think in my life I've ever looked at it once, to be honest, because first of all, I really, that means nothing to me. I care about who I'm selling footballs for next year, so I'll worry about it AFC, NFC weekend when there's 4 teams left. But the Rams have to be moving up. They just have to be. They're just playing really, really good. And, he's a very good quarterback.
Well, Stafford's elite. Puka Nacua is back. The defense is really finding its edge. It's a really good team. And this is a big game because this is going to decide. Well, I shouldn't say totally decide because Seattle's in the mix as well. But right now, you got the 49ers are 6-3. Rams are 6-2. Seattle's 6-2. So technically, those two teams are ahead. But the 49ers have beaten Seattle and the Rams already so far. So this is a big matchup this weekend for the division leader after the weekend.
And I would imagine if you beat me early in the season when I was kind of just getting my footing, and now I'm a little better, I don't forget that you beat me. I probably remember that. So that might help. That might help in some of the decisions on, when to score points and when to punt,
I will say in some ways, the 49ers are actually more healthy this week than they were when they played the Rams the first time around. In some ways, not every way, but in some ways, which is kind of weird. But anyway, so for this game, I do have player props that I want to attack. And this is probably going to make you lead to think that I'm picking the Rams. And if I had to pick one, I probably would pick the Rams. So I have Stafford over 262.5 passing yards. I have him projected for 282 heading into this matchup. And I have that parlayed up with Puka Nacua over 94.5 reception yards. I have him projected for 104. Here's the thing, guys. Because the 49ers lost Bosa and now lost Mykal Williams and have lost Fred Warner, I know they're going to get Bryce Huff back this week, which will help, but this pass rush has been non-existent. Think about this. The 49ers, who used to be known as a vaunted defense with a hell of a pass rush, are the worst pass rushing team in the NFL this season. And you're going to put that up against Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua, who are both having elite seasons. Give me the over when you're going to give these guys time to throw on both of them. So Stafford over 262.5, Puka Nacua over 94.5. Let's talk a little Lions and Commanders, shall we? All right, the Lions coming into this game looks like they're now moved to 9.5-point favorites after being 7.5-point favorites to open up the week. And on top, or 8.5 now, actually, went down a point from 9.5, and now are at 49.5 over under for the game. Jaden Daniels is out for the Commanders. The Lions have a bad taste in their mouth from a week ago. I think the Lions not only win this game by the 8.5, I would bet the Lions at 14 points, and I would still expect them to win this game. I think they're going to come in and just run down the throats of the Washington Commanders. That'll be reflected as we get into the player props here in a minute. But Chaz, how do you see in this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, Detroit's offense is just, it's been 3 weeks now. They just haven't looked good. And so,
yeah.
You got to take advantage of the opportunities, and you got a team in Washington and that pretty much everybody scores 4 touchdowns on. So, there's times I tend to hesitate coming back on a team, but I know that coach, right? We all know that coach, and I would imagine it wasn't a fun week to be a Detroit Lion, because they embarrassed themselves in front of their home fans, right? That was at a home game.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. That couple 2 different points, right? It's a couple less points than they would be given if they were playing in Detroit, the same team. So,
right.
I like Detroit.
I like them too. Here's the props for you. I got 3 of them for this game. So I got Jahmyr Gibbs. I talked about how I expect him to rush over, but I also love his rush and reception yards prop. So it's 100.5. I have him projected for 110 for this ball game. I expect a big bounce back matchup for him. And again, Commanders cannot stop anything right now, especially on the ground. So I expect Gibbs to have a couple of big plays and really I expect the Lions to ride him to get right in this matchup. But there's a particular receiver named Jameson Williams that I am intrigued by his receptions props. His receptions prop is only 2.5. So he comes out last week, and I know that his volume and his usage has had a wide variance week to week throughout this season. It's been frustrating as all hell from a fantasy standpoint, I can tell you that much. But what's been interesting is that they go in the bye week, and Johnny Morton made a public, statement saying he apologized to Jameson Williams for not doing a good enough job of getting him involved. Then they come out of the bye week. He gets 7 targets and 6.
So was that the dad? Was that the dad that posted?
No.
That was a different one.
Well, we had 2 dads. So we had Marvin Harrison Sr. come out and tell the Cardinals they need to get Marvin Harrison Jr. the ball a little bit more. But recently, it was Roma Dunze's dad who just came out this week and started talking about, because after Roma Dunze in that big game the Bears had, where there was 1,000 yards offense, and he had 0. And we're like, look, you need to get my son the ball. What's the matter with you? So those are the 2 dads that we have. But Jameson Williams was not that. This was the offensive coordinator apologized for not getting him involved after they've paid him and expected him to be a big-time weapon, and they just haven't consistently got to him. And his receptions is only sitting at 2.5. The Commanders are a great matchup for this. I don't know if he's involved much more in this, but I do have him projected for 3 catches in this game, as they seem to want to have him more involved, more consistently moving forward.
I mean, that is, if you've ever played receiver, and you only get 2.5 catches in a game, that's a long-ass game, because you're really not a receiver at that point. No. You're a runner or you're a blocker.
Right.
You're not a receiver.
Right. You're running the treadmill for the most part.
Yeah.
Deebo Samuel, under 5.5 receptions. I'm surprised it's this high. I know Terry McLaurin is out, but Deebo Samuel has been on the decline, like he has been for the past 3 seasons when we get to the second half of the year. And now Marcus Mariota is going to be the quarterback, and they're going to be a super spreader offense. And Deebo Samuel hasn't even gotten 6 catches in forever. So yeah, give me the under on Deebo at 5.5 receptions heading into this week. Let's get into Sunday night. The Pittsburgh Steelers against the Los Angeles Chargers. The Steelers coming off a big win last week when they knocked off the Colts in a very weird fashion. I mean, they talk about every lucky bounce heading your direction. That's what happened in that Colts game. It was absolutely insane. The Chargers at home are favored at 2.5 points with an over-under at 45.5. How do you see this game, Chaz?
Yeah, I got over written down, and I think the reason I got over is I see teams that are allowing points and scoring points, and again, keep it that simple. If you see doesn't allow, scores, those are all good things. So I got the over here.
I'm with you 100%. So while the Steelers had a decent game last week, it was still a over game. It still went over as far as the total is concerned. Their pass rush got going, but they can still be had in the passing game on down the field. And that's all the Chargers are doing right now, because without Amari and Hampton, Kamani Vidal is really just there to have a resemblance of a running game, but this is all flowing through Justin Herbert right now. So I'm with you on the over. And speaking of Herbert, because of that usage in this matchup, I do have him over his passing yards prop of 258.5 passing yards. I have him projected for 283. It's one of my biggest edges of the week. The Steelers secondary is old and slow, and the Chargers are now a pass first team. Lock it in. Justin Herbert over 258.5 passing yards.
They were showing the AFC West on the screen the other night, right? Who played? Was it Thursday's game? It was Thursday.
It was the Packers and the Raiders.
Right.
Easy to forget. I want to forget that game.
Yeah. It was. That was another team that just didn't show up. But so what happened was the Chargers started hot, but they started hot on a season where they were playing all division games. And that 4-0 looks really, really solid right now. But I guarantee it, they will somehow not win that division. They may not even make the playoffs.
Oh, they should make the playoffs.
I know they should. But again, the concept of a curse. You were in the Dominican Republic, right?
Yeah, I believe
they
so.
have voodoo down there. I mean, curses are a big deal, and the Chargers have a curse.
Oh man, spoken like a guy who's been living in the area and seen it happen over and over and over again. No, I get it. I 100% do. What about Monday Night Football? Any curses there? We got the Eagles and the Green Bay Packers. Should be a good game, if nothing else. The Packers are at home, and I think that's the only reason why they're favored in this matchup at -1.5 with a 45.5 over under. Give me my second underdog special of the week with the Eagles winning this game outright. AJ Brown is back. They're healthy. They're coming off of a bye. The Packers just had this huge embarrassing loss against the Carolina Panthers in their own building a week ago. I don't know how you bet any other way than the Eagles if you are going to take a winner in this matchup. What do you got, Chaz?
Yeah, that point spread doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree.
It really doesn't, because if you're comparing common opponents, the Eagles are so much better than Carolina, and you couldn't beat Carolina. Why are you giving the Eagles points? But some of the things that jumps out at me, we were talking about the first quarter. Philadelphia, 11 of the last 12 games overall, they have scored a touchdown or more in the first quarter. Their overs are 9-2-1. But I guarantee their team totals are pretty good up there. The only problem with team totals, as you know, is if your team scores 14 points in 10 straight and the team total was 14.5, it don't help you any. So you got to be careful there. But the Green Bay is allowing 18 or less in 7 of 8, and the under is 1-5-1. So this game's got the opposite stuff on it, but I'm just going by the what I've seen with my eyes, and I like Philly here. But the trend's got the over for sure.
Okay. Well, yeah, 45.5. I like that. The Packers are weird. Statistically, they have one of the best defenses in the NFL, but they give up points quite frequently when they play a competent team. So it's kind of one of those weird things. It's I don't really know how good you are, other than you typically speaking don't give up much when you play bad teams, which is what you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to be talented. But when they play competent teams, it's not a defense that scares you. So it's kind of one of those things. So I like the over on that one too. That's going to wrap it up for the show. Chaz, as always, man, I love having you on. I'm glad we're able to do this every Friday. It's really a ton of fun.
You know what? When we're successful, it's even more fun. So let's just plan on being successful.
I like that plan there too. Tell people what you're up to and what they need to check out.
Yeah, again, I've told you I've dove full bore into my writing, and I'm finishing up. I did the first one I did a script. Script writing is very, very hard, and it's very time consuming. And so I have a script. So the script, I couldn't get anybody to take it. It's a sports betting comedy. So I'm writing now a sports betting thriller movie. It's kind of a con artist movie, and but I'm not writing the script this time. I'm just writing the scenes. I'm writing scene by scene by scene, because at some point in time I can find somebody that could help me, or I'll pay an app to dump the text in and have them write the screen printing. But next year is my year. I'm taking this stuff and I'm just going to be knocking on doors and looking to get on TV.
Hey, I love it. Dreams ring eternal, and I hope that works out for you 100%. And I'll be looking forward to watching that if it and when it does. As always, guys, make sure you check me out on social media at Dan Mader FF. My player props article always drops on the Huddle on Saturdays, as well as the show. So make sure you download it on your favorite podcast app and check out our video content on the Fantasy Football Advice Network YouTube channel. I'm actually going to be doing another show tonight with Tyler Bradley on his show, Fantasy from the Forum, so you can check that out too. We'll be doing a lot of start-sit questions on that one, I am sure. And make sure you guys come back next week, because Operation Domination is ringing strong. And guys, we're getting closer to the fantasy football playoffs and getting less and less time to cash in some of these tickets for football, which still has one of the best edges of all the sports out there. So let's take advantage of that. Chaz, you always like to say,
yeah, always be catching.
We'll see you guys soon.